to all those dads out there that deserve it. All right. So today we're going to talk about money, and not necessarily in
money.
in money when it comes to
that's a trigger word, or it could be a nice word. You know what I'm saying? A motivating word right there.
It can make us feel good. It can make us
Right.
feel bad. But really, we're going to talk about not necessarily money and how to make it, but our relationship with it. What is your relationship with money? And this, I've been thinking over the last couple weeks about, how everything around us, how we respond to everything around us.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, it's always about you as an individual. A lot of times, and there's outside things that we can't control, but a lot of times we say, this person made me mad, this person made me do this,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes down to it, is what's your relationship with yourself?
Right.
And internally, what are you doing?
Right.
And as I was thinking about the discussions we normally have, which is usually about careers and jobs and entrepreneurship and relationships, I was like, what really comes down to is how does one manage relationships, which leads to how does one manage relationships in money, which can lead to your choice in career,
right,
choice in spouse, choice in where you live, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not necessarily just about money, but it's your relationship to how you utilize the things around you. So we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, we're going to dive deep into it.
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive. So real quick, what is a relationship with money? It refers to the beliefs, emotions, behaviors, and unconscious stories called money scripts, where we carry what influences us, how we view it,
right,
and how we use it and how we feel about it. This could be start from our childhood through our parents' attitudes and habits. Probably saving can look at money through trauma, by growing up poor, witnessing financial instability. It could be religious reasons,
right,
or moral beliefs, like money is evil, money equals blessings. I remember working at a bank, and I was helping a young lady who was, I can't remember her religious beliefs, but I was talking about, hey, why don't you open up this account and you can get interest off of it. And she said, I can't open that account. I said, why not? She says, my religious beliefs. I had never heard that.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Right.
And she was like, no, seriously, I can't open up a savings account. They don't believe in, my religion doesn't believe in making money off interest.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, wow. I didn't know that. So it's interesting. And then, I also remember some things that happened to me when I was young, and how my family handled money.
Right.
We looked at career as stability of money. Like,
right.
Like my family grew up with, you get a job, you work a W-2 job.
Right.
Because that's the most secure way to make money.
Right. Right.
And where entrepreneurship was just kind of like, that's risky.
Right.
Right. So we're gonna dive deep into it,
right,
and dive into this topic. So
yeah, so many layers to this topic when it comes to how you think about money in terms of your relationship with money. When you say relationship, it's kind of like how you actually see money, how you actually have it. How much does it play an important role in your life and your decisions, right? Because we are productive of our environment, not environment, but our nurturing and our nature, right? A lot of times we're taught how to actually how to manage money based upon what we see and what we grow up around. It's kind of like that ecosystem we grow up in, where we see how people, most of our environment handles money. We tend to mimic that because that's the most comfortable way we feel about it. Anything new is going to be strange, right? Like it's kind of like the downloading of it in your subconscious that, you know what, if you say money is bad when you're young and you see bad things happen and they blame everything on money,
right?
It's always been a trigger, and it's going to trigger certain things in your past.
Like if we just had more money,
right,
life would be better.
Yeah, if we had more money, life would be better.
Right.
Or we can't have all this money because we just not, we're not, how to put it, that we don't deserve it. Right. Or money's evil. Right. So there's so many perspectives people have when it comes to money. But one of the things I've always said is when it comes to when we say money, we have to always attach a value to it. And the value of money, everybody has a different value attached to it. Right. But when it comes to the dollar value of money, it's universal. Mm-hmm. Right. The same money doesn't bring happiness, but at the same time too, it creates options for you to be happy, right?
That's true.
Right. So because I've come, and more than ever right now, I've come to understand that money doesn't make you intelligent. Having more money than someone else does not make you intelligent, right? More than ever right now, I kind of had to understand that, because now you're seeing that there's pros and cons to looking at people who have a lot of money and thinking that, oh, they can be the most, because they have success in making money, that they can be successful in other areas, right? Mm-hmm. Let's break it down, like someone like Elon Musk. I mean, so great. And I had this discussion with somebody the other day too, and I was like, look, I mean, he's the richest man in the world, right? The richest man in the world. But when we say he's the smartest man in the world, right? A lot of people will equate that to being smart, right? Now, I would say this. I wouldn't say he's the smartest man. Well, I think the people that he hires is way smarter than him, right? I would say his intelligence is how he allocates money. Right. So in terms of a lot of things, he is able to purchase certain things, intellectual property, and actually now patent it as his own. But still, he's going to have people working who's smarter than him working for him, right? And that's how I think. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh, he does so much and he's all over the place." Yeah, well, that's the level of his intelligence. He knows how to allocate money and make sure that it's being invested and he's getting a return on investment.
Right.
And it started off, if you look at his history at PayPal. Right. He was in banking. You understand? He created fintech. Fintech was he started that and he sold that, made billions of dollars, created a system of where people can pay electronically. And that took off all around the world. Right. And that was the kind of start of fintech, and now capitalized on that and started Tesla. Right. So this is where, I mean, so for somebody to go from fintech to a car, then to rockets, then satellites, you gotta understand that he's a great at allocating money. So there's different layers to this, and I point that out too, because he's one of those people in the spotlight right now where you look at him and he came into a different sector where it's now dealing with the social aspect of money, right? It's not, now you have the profit, which is the capitalist aspect. Now you have the social aspect of money.
So let me ask you this. So how does money affect people's career decisions? And your thoughts about security over passion? Like a lot of times you hear people say, choose a career or industry or job that's secure.
Right.
And then you have a lot of people say, follow your passion. Because, it seems like people who kind of have like a scarce or scarcity-based money mindset, they tend to choose like becoming an accounting or getting into healthcare or medicine over being something more creative like an artist or a painter or something.
Right.
And people who seem to be like to be rebellious, they tend not to go for those safe type of careers.
Right.
So tell me your thoughts about how people. What do you think about how people choose their careers based upon their ideology of money?
That's a good question. You touched on something that's important, I think, which is when people say that scarcity mindset, and then there's the abundance mindset. right? So the scarcity mindset will always try to be risk averse, which they're trying to avoid risk at all opportunities. So they want something more structured. They want something they can depend on. They want something that they can, and that is good when it comes to you saving consistently. All right. Now, this is what I would say that they say the average when they were looking at the millionaires, they were doing a demographic what do you call it? When they looked at millionaires and what those millionaires were made up of, or what they spend money on, and what type of jobs they have. They say that a lot of millionaires, they say that most of the millionaires in the are teachers, and I was like, that's interesting, So why are teachers? Because number one, it's very consistent for them. They're able to save money. They're able to they know what's coming. Yeah, those are some of the most secure jobs, and they're paid decent. They're paid decent, but they're able to use a lot of resources, right? One of the things about what they were showing is that it's not how much money, and according to Garrett, it depends, because money is the reason why I think most people will work hard for money is because of the freedom they get, or the sense of freedom that they were trying to achieve, right? Most people.
But does it create freedom? Meaning, okay, I think it creates more options.
Right, and that's the freedom. Without options, with less options,
right,
you don't have freedom, right?
So. But let's say someone who makes high earning income, but they good at what they do. They like what they do. Good evening, Marlisa. Good seeing you. They're good at what they do, or they do what they do well, but they make good money, but they work 15 hours, 16 hours a day, 6-7 days a week for 20 years.
Right.
I mean, is that really freedom? Because
no, it's not. But if you're doing something that you enjoy, that's the difference, right?
And I think that's the thing,
right? If you're doing something that you're passionate, let's say, because think about it like this: I never understand a doctor's job, right? So say somebody who went to school for 8 years, right? 10 years, did an internship. Well, 10 years basically, 8 years, 1 year internship, and then racked up over $500,000 in debt going to school,
right?
And then starts off on the ER floor, which is where that's where you see the worst of the worst coming in, right? And you have to look at that. Like for me, I can't deal with all the gore and the blood and all that stuff that I'm gonna have to deal with, right? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I'm like, yeah, they deserve that, but they're doing that. At least keep in mind, and most of the time, they're not doing it for the money, right? They're doing it because they have something in them they were passionate about in the past, right? And that's kind of like the abundance mindset, right? It's like if you do something consistently, right, and you do it with a passion, sooner or later the expectation is that it's going to pay off. It's going to give you returns on the investment. It doesn't matter what it is.
So you being a father,
right?
Would you teach your children to follow their passion, or get into a career that makes good money for them?
And it depends. I mean, it is. I would say it all depends upon the circumstances, right? I believe that everybody's path is going to be different, right? Based upon who they are, the skills they have, right, and the ability to actually to capitalize on those skills,
right?
All right. Some kids are athletically blessed but would never be in the NBA, right? Or they'll never go pro, right? Some kids are academically blessed, but they will never ever be able to, become the next Einstein, right? Or the next Bill Gates, right? So, but there are kids who actually have that ability, right? And the thing about it is, going after your passion, you have to lay some foundations,
right?
Especially when you was never exposed to it, right? When it's kind of like you'll find that kids have the learning curve for certain things, like say your dad managed a hedge fund, right? $1 billion hedge fund your dad managed, right? So a lot of times you would be able to actually pick up on certain things that when it comes to money and so you be comfortable in that environment where you're talking about your dad's not talking about $1,000, he's talking about millions of dollars. And I'll tell you this story. Like one time I remember I did a notary signing and I went to the La Jolla, the Rancho Santa Fe golf course. Now Rancho Santa Fe, you know where that is, right?
Around your folks. Yeah,
not my folks. I can't even buy a parking spot there. I can't pay for parking there. But the golf course, I remember I went there, and the guy who was signing the documents, he said, meet me at a golf course. I'll just come out and I'll sign in. So he came out and he was sitting down and he's on the phone. And he's telling me, he's kind of signaling me where the docs, and I'm hearing the conversation he's having, and I'm like, he's like, oh yeah, transfer $1 million and put $2 million in this account for me, and I'm like, okay, right. So I mean, in my mind, that's kind of like, it's kind of out for me. It's like, oh, why is he showboating? And in my mind, because I mean, somebody talking like that, you're talking about transferring millions of dollars into your account, but I mean. I was like, okay, let me get the signing done and walk away. And he was way cool, normal guy. Sounded like he was normal. He wasn't trying to look at me and say, hey, it sounded like he was just normal. But I'm like, why talk about money like that? Right. But then when I looked him up, he was one of the top CEOs of a big I'm not going to say the name of the company, but one of the big telecommunication companies. Right. So I Googled his name. I was like, whoa. And I see it already. As soon as you go put his name in, because I knew his name and everything, and it's like his net worth popped up. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's who I was talking with. So now I understand, right? It's a different level, right? So then the comfort level when it comes to money is like there's people who are, just like we would talk about $1, they talk about millions of dollars, right? And the reason why I say that is because think about his environment and his bubble, people who talk like that. The people he's talking to on the phone could be his wife or his kid he's talking to, right? But at the same time, too, that's where the learning curve is reduced when it comes to your comfort with money. Somebody who, if you come from that type of environment, you are now going to see the world as somebody who isn't, right?
Right. Okay. Well, let me bring this up. Speaking of that environment,
right?
What about partner selection or marriage selection when it comes to your relationship with money?
Right.
Some people choose to marry someone who has a lot of money.
Right.
Some people may intentionally choose someone who doesn't have a lot of money.
Right.
For whatever many reasons that they have. I'm not going to get into what the reasons were, but some people have their reasons why I need to be married someone with a lot of money.
Right.
And in their mind, it might mean security or whatever.
Right.
Or I might mean that I want to marry someone who doesn't have a lot of money, which means that I have control.
Right.
Or whatever. And then where they meet the financial attraction of this person.
Right.
But their mindset is, I'm not in love with this person. Love will figure it out.
Right.
Because I need someone who's financially stable. So how do you look at money in choosing a partner or spouse?
Right. I mean, well, that's one of the things that actually, money is one of the top, I think the top 5 things that causes a lot of separation in marriages or divorces, other than infidelity. And then you have money, and then you have trust and all that stuff. I think that's a conversation that should be had because people have the conversation about the relationship, religion before they get married, but a lot of people try to skip over the money part, right? Now, it has changed a whole lot, right?
Well, I will say it's a big deal.
It has changed a lot, right? So one of the things I would say has changed where it's kind of like at one extreme to the other, right? How much money is it a criteria for someone to have? We don't know, right? Based upon that person's preferences. Now, it's kind of like this, and who is expected to make the money, right? That's one of the things that has to be kind of understood. Now, you can't blame somebody for coming into a relationship and saying beforehand, this is what I expect. And then you are like, hey, and then it all switched around. A lot of times in a marriage, you got to adjust, but sometimes you got to, if it wasn't true or you wasn't honest about that, that is next to you lost their trust, right? Because that's a sense of security for some people, right? But I wouldn't say money's the only thing that makes that you can say. I would say the value of what you have at that point in your relationship, right? Somebody who is actually looks like because as I said in the beginning, I made this clear. A lot of money doesn't mean that you're very smart. You understand?
Right.
All right. Because there's some people who inherited money and they'll just go blow it, right? Because they don't have no idea how to make it work. They never had to work for it, right? But I believe that if you're making the right decisions, you have the right discipline, you have the right type of mindset when it comes to money, saving money, being a steward of money, right? I think it does turn out a lot better in the future because money is more of a tool, right? And once you can understand that, because some people also will say, oh, I want a lot of money because this is my lifestyle, right? Because your lifestyle is spending money, right? Now, if you come and you say, I want somebody with a lot of money because I want this sense of security because we have a plan for 10 years down the road,
right?
20 years down the road, what do you want to be like? So you want to make sure that you set up a good foundation.
So let's say, and you're in real estate, and
right.
I've definitely looked at a lot of income documents and reports, and if someone has a not so good credit score,
right,
and doesn't make much income,
right,
do you think that's justification of the other person not deciding to be with them?
If that's their criteria, sure. I mean, that you can't this.
What if you get along with every personality you get along with?
Doesn't matter. I mean,
you have
for me,
same religious and political beliefs,
right?
You're attracted to one another,
right? At 20 something, yeah, I would say no. That's not.
No, you 30. You 30.
So now you're talking somebody who's like
you're both 38.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like that's for me. That shouldn't be a deciding factor because you in life you're not always going to be rich, right? There's wins and there's losses in life. That's just life in general, right? You can lose it all. Because number one, the only way that most people you would say that you make money is by having your money work for you, right? So that means you have to put it in risk assets that are actually giving returns on investment. And the higher the return on investment, the higher, which is the risk, the greater the probability of losing it, right? Now there are hedges towards that and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, yes, you could lose it still. Right, by risking it. Now, is what are you going to learn from that? Now, those are the things that at a certain age, I wish, and that's what I will instill in my kids is, hey, you're gonna have losses, but you're gonna have to learn from those losses how to and get back up and do it again. Now, this is something that you're. That's why for me, you wouldn't jump into the relationship with someone who's not going to stick around for your losses, right? It's just how it is. Remember what the vows you're taking, rich or poor. Right. No, all right.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Rich or poor. I look at it as that could change.
Right.
So people's credit scores can always get better.
Right.
people's income can always increase or get better.
Right.
In fact, you could be married. Before you get married, you can have a great credit score. Get married, have a great credit score,
and have a bad credit score right after.
Somewhere down the line, you
Right.
have a bad credit score. You lose, and I would hate for someone to justify, well, I married you because your income was good and you had a good credit score, which means you have access to different lending opportunities.
Right.
But since you ain't got that right now,
right?
You know, like I would. So
well, that wasn't based on a solid foundation. I mean, marrying because of money is something that you're not really into the person, you're into what they can provide.
But I guess the question is,
so that's a transaction.
That's a transaction, fee for service or whatever.
Right.
But I guess it's what's a good balance with that? And nothing's perfectly balanced, but what's a good balance between choosing a partner versus the other partner's financial acumen and how they use that? But I'm saying that real quick because I think pretty soon we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and
we already just 3 minutes in.
in just less than a minute. But it's something that, you know, if you're listening in and you want to comment, please put it right here in the comment section right here in the Facebook. We can see it right here live, and we're able to, you know, say your comments online or on the show.
Right.
And I think tonight's topic is pretty good because, you know, it's all about our relationships and how we relate money to our different relationships. So, you know, don't tune out. Come back in. We'll be back in just under 30 seconds.
Have you heard about the Hope for Home Ownership Research Program? It allows you to earn 3.5% of your home's purchase price, up to $13,000. This program is easy, and it does not slow down your home purchase or loan process. Just like other research projects, you are paid to be a part of the study. This income is eligible for use on your home purchase to cover such things as down payment, rate buy down, or even debt payoff. Spend it or save it as you see fit. Oh, by the way, the average participant also receives an additional $12,000 after closing through the Residential Clean Energy Tax Credit. If you could use up to $13,000 to help purchase a home and could benefit from an additional increased tax credit in the range of $12,000, then visit the ahagroup.org/Clinton James or call 61938-49269 for more information.
All right, we're back, and we're talking about your relationship with money and how that affects the decisions you make in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about how that affects your career decisions. Right. We also talked about how that affects your relationship decisions. Let's talk about lifestyle and identity, and how money affects you. Some people feel like I must have X to be successful. I must have the latest Jordans, or I must have the latest, you know, Mercedes Benz, or some type of house or something to show that you have some type of status, to show that you are important in society. Lifestyle decisions people make affect their identity based upon money. So I guess the question is, does my spending reflect my values or my insecurities?
Right. That's a good question. And that's a question that I think most people will have to answer. I wouldn't know until I actually, because I say if you want to tell somebody and who they are, look at their bank account, their credit, the debits and their credits in their bank account, right? Or look at the checkbook. You know, you know what they're spending money on. When you talk to a financial advisor, or when your tax person will tell you who you are, a lot of people's tax people will actually, when they look at their accounts, it's like boom, boom, they know what they're spending money on, right? Then if you want to be financially, if you want to be a fiscal person, you track what your spending is, right? Now, if somebody is trying to equate, okay, well, this is who I am, based upon this is what I have, right?
Like it identifies.
Right, identify.
I'll give you. I hope this person's not listening, but I don't think they. Well, maybe they are. But you know, not to put them on blast, but I was trying to help this individual with a loan some years back. And we're going through this person's income, and we have to pull their credit report and all that. And I looked at their payments.
Right.
And I was like, this car payment right here is your debt to income ratio to be able to purchase.
Okay.
Like, do you have to have this car? They said yes.
Right.
Why? It's just who I am. It's just who I am. I said, yeah, but your car payment is like $800 a month.
Right.
It's like, if you brought that down another, $500-$600, you know how much more house you can purchase?
Right.
How much, and they was like, but the thing about it is I have to have this because of my image and things of that nature.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I mean, you're still you.
Right.
But you don't have to be, you can still be you driving, something cheaper.
Right.
Right. And then after you close in the house and get the car again or something, whatever. But, this person was they had to make, and they did eventually buy a house, by the way.
Right.
Just not the size house that they wanted. But this individual, it was so important for them to show that they had some type of status.
Right.
And that car was to show proof of status. And there's nothing wrong with having nice things in a nice car.
Right.
But why are you making a decision? Do you make a decision because you like it?
Right.
Or are you making a decision because you're trying to prove to society that you're worthy?
Right. Now I would say this. Going broke because you're trying to show somebody that you're rich is like working backwards in life, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, so one of the things is that we all know cars are investments that actually depreciate a whole lot faster than any other investment. So you drive it off the lot, boom, it starts depreciating. Now at the same time too, it's kind of like in certain places, in certain situations, you're going to need a car and a dependable one too. Right. Sometimes it's not about status a lot of times. For some people, I think it's more of where they just wanted something that they can rely on and they can rely on for a long time. Right. And then they'll definitely, because cars, you have to take care of cars as much as anything else. They take care of your body, right? Because you're driving them. Think about how many times we start our car, how many times we open the door, how many times we actually the car drives, how many miles we put in the car. So a lot of times you would go broke fast. It's kind of like this with cars. If you're buying something that's not dependable, and you would know something that's not a secondhand car, something with a lot of miles in it, you most likely are going to spend more money fixing the car than actually you spend more money than when you would buy a new car. A lot of times it kind of works out like that, right? Because when you look at car parts and all that stuff and taking it to the mechanic and all that, changing it does. But if you have a brand new car and you put the miles on it, you use it, you get more value from that than having having a car with higher miles in it. And then later on, 5 years later, you have to replace it.
But some people just got to look good.
Right. So and it's the type of car too. I said if those things are not one of the criteria and why people buy cars, I mean there's all different levels to it. A luxury car. Some people have 4 or 5 cars and they call it, they have a weekend car. Some people have 20 cars. Why? You know what I'm saying? 20 luxury cars. I mean, what is that for?
Well, I mean,
right, a fleet.
Well,
and they all parked up in your garage.
I don't see nothing wrong. Like if you're a car enthusiast, you just and you have the means, by all means, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But
if you're a collector, right?
But just
but as I said, the difference is you buying cars and going broke.
Right. But
show those cars.
And the car is an example. It could be anything. It could be clothes. It could be me growing up, big sneaker, sneaker fan, Jordans and Iversons. And,
right.
Like those shoes meant something to me because if I never forget the first day I put on a brand new pair of Iversons. when the first ones came out, the questions, and walked into school, and the kids, no, it was a party. I walked into a party and I had those on. Man, I was the man that night.
Right.
And with that, my relationship with that was,
right,
I gotta keep some clean sneakers on me because
right,
that's going to get me the attention I want. And then that eventually led to clothes where I have to wear FUBU, and
right.
this is the 90s, y'all, just so you know. FUBU and Tommy Hilfiger,
right.
and
Yeah, they wear all the brand names and stuff,
you know,
like that.
Nautica, you know,
Right.
I have to show, like, it was brand name type
Right.
of thing. I should show. And I remember sometimes, you know, my mom want to buy me something like a button-up shirt. I'm like, that, who made this?
Right.
you know, some guy. I'm like, oh, hey, this
Right.
is not cool. But I was attaching my, you know,
Your self-worth, right?
I was attaching my self-worth,
right,
to my clothes,
right,
and I just didn't think too much of it. Not working so much in who I was as a person. Now, are people attracted to me, or are they going to be attracted to my clothes?
It's a balance you have to find with that. So, I mean, I can, this is what I used to work in retail, right? I used to work in the women's shoe department at Nordstrom. And I remember, I never understood the 6-inch heels and stuff like that, because I mean, I was like, wow, that looks so uncomfortable. And it is, I mean, from what I understand, from hearing women's,
you hear it's uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah.
But the money
you don't
you
know.
spend on it, it's like, whoa, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, the thing about it is that internally we all have that consumerism, and that's how we've been programmed, right? Mm-hmm. That's the system of commerce and capitalism, right? We always have to, in order for us to actually feel like we are part of a system,
right? It's like
we spend, right?
The new style,
right?
The new, you know, for those who, there's some people out there who are purse enthusiasts,
right?
I got to get the brand new,
right?
Birkin bag, or, you know, Louis Vuitton,
right? And it doesn't matter a lot of times. Like, I mean, even when how the margins on those things and how much it's made, like with match, still there's because it's kind of like this. The more, and it comes down to this, somebody put it like this: there's a science to, just like in real estate, and it's called economics, right? Mm-hmm. The science is all about it, and it's supply and demand, right? So if somebody, if they restrict the supply of something, or you manipulate the supply of something, the price obviously goes up, mm-hmm. right? So if you're making an exclusive item, right, it goes up. Right, and that's consumerism. We all part of the system, right? Right. So I mean, but if there's high demand for something, then you can actually manipulate the demand. So if there's high demand for something, where you have more demand than supply, it's going to push the price up. Right.
But I guess the psychology of like utilizing money as a tool to make sure we're feeding our insecurities in purchasing these things that make us look like we're important.
Right.
I think the other part of it too is, how do we use spending money to reflect our values?
Right.
Things that are important to us. Like I work for a nonprofit organization, so people may want to donate to organizations that you know, help the underserved, or some people want to make sure that they're using the money towards tithes and offerings, like something that they value, and that they're not actually getting something physically back, except that is feeding their soul, like it's good for the soul. How in your thoughts, how does one get there to the point where they're using money to feed the values that are important to them?
Now, I mean, I remember the formula that I showed you, the value formula, which is
remind me.
It's called value equals utility over cost multiplied by I'm forgetting. Okay, so utility over cost, which means that if satisfaction, utility just means satisfaction, right? So the more you satisfy, if something satisfies you, and there's a level of satisfaction you get, you don't mind paying a higher cost for it, right? So the higher the value is, the lower the the cost of it, and the bigger the satisfaction. So if people if you lower the cost of something and you increase the utility of it, which is the satisfaction of it, you get more value from it.
I never quite thought about it that way.
So it's kind of like you're saying, like and I'll give you an example that you just used. You say somebody goes to church, right? You get a lot of value from it by going to church. You don't pay to go to church, right?
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
You can go for free, but they let you know.
The majority, they don't charge you at the door now.
But they don't charge you at the door. But they let you know.
You have a choice.
To keep the lights on, to keep this going, it ain't free.
Right. Yeah. It's a choice, right? So you can go enjoy a service and walk out. You can't go to a restaurant, enjoy the meal, and walk out, right? You know, it's different. So, but you get a lot of satisfaction from it, right?
Right.
So you get more value from something like that, right? You feel it's more value to spend more time and focus more on that, and you focus on, because if you went to a church and they like had a bouncer with somebody by the door, and you're like, you gotta pay for your family, right? It's different.
they got the parking lot. They got the parking lot.
The pastor was like, "Hey, close the doors." It's
Oh yeah. Close the door.
Close the doors.
Close the door. Close the door.
All right.
Yeah. Shout out to him though. I know that was taken out of context.
I know everybody knows that, but he fell in that sword.
Yeah, but. That's a good point. With the value and utility, because when I was talking about the shoes thing,
right?
I bought these pair of shoes. And one thing I'll say, like, I used to have a guilt associated when I spent money on clothes for myself, right? Like I would feel guilty buying these Jordans and stuff like that. Because I was like, I like them, I want them, but they're not really that important. But when I put them on, I feel good.
Right.
But I was like, was it worth it? But I remember I bought these pair of shoes, these suede shoes. I still wear today. People every say you throw them things away.
Right.
And I felt very satisfied after purchasing those shoes. And it wasn't even about the compliments from other people, although I received them. It was about, this shoe fits me. This thing fits me. So, I think when we are making financial decisions, I don't want people to feel guilty about spending money on things that they enjoy and like and have leisure and vacations and things of that nature.
Right.
But
it's having that mindset where you have to compete with somebody else, right?
Right. What's your intention?
Right. What's your intention? Now, if it's about you and not about the person that you compete or you think you have to compete with, right? That's where it gets jaded, right? Some people like quality things. Like some people will eat at a Michelin 5-star restaurant, right? Where you get it's almost like bird food you're getting, right? But it's artistic and stuff. But while it's like, for me, I'm like, hey, like this is not filling. I might need like 6 portions to fill. But it looks good, amazing, tastes amazing, but at the same time, I need to pay a high price for that, because number one, it's rare. It's a rare chef. And then on top of that, it's Michelin 5-star. There's a brand hit, right? So it's all about consumerism. While for me, you take me to a nice buffet, and I'm like, hey, pay $30-$50 and I'll eat all you want. Right. But at the same time, too, that's me, right?
You,
So all I'm saying is that there's everybody's going to have a different preference, right? And it's not about, if it's something where you went to a Michelin star restaurant and you had a Burger King budget. Right.
Do what works for you.
But
don't do something to get the approval from others.
Right.
Because I realize most people just don't care. Most people don't care what kind of car you're driving. Most people don't care what kind of clothes you have on.
Right.
And one thing I want to hit on this before the next thing.
I would say yes and no. Most people don't care, but you have to. It's kind of like this.
They ain't thinking about it as much as you are.
And I had this talk with some young men the other day. I'm like, in order for you to build rapport very quickly, you have to know the environment you're in, right? People don't go golfing and spend all that money on golf because they're trying to, but if you want to go golfing, you want to meet people, you want to use it, right?
And that's
right.
Next.
So I mean, it builds like, so say you're going to a networking event where you know there's going to be a lot of financial advisors, people deal with, or hedge funders. You want to wear something nice because you know what that does? Hey, where do you get that watch from?
Right.
Conversation starts, building rapport. Oh, I like those so-and-so shoes.
Yeah.
People will, you see, people like, how to put it, people like talking about themselves, but they also like being recognized. Right?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Right.
You're right. It's when you're trying to communicate something,
right?
A lot of times you can communicate all we need to communicate without saying anything is in our appearance.
Right.
So yeah. And that's another thing I want to hit on too. Quality,
right?
Always over quantity.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So if you're a man and you want to look nice, it might be buying that one suit that costs a lot,
right?
But it's quality, which means it's going to last you for a long time,
right?
So you're making an investment,
right?
Versus maybe you got 6 suits that don't cost that much, but they're ripping, they're tearing. Right. You got to buy a new one next year and things of that nature. It look funny sitting on you, this and that.
Right.
So, and same things for, the ladies who wear certain shoes or certain clothes, just making sure that you're not constantly.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you can't have a lot of clothes. It's just more so to the extent of making sure that if you want to make the right impression,
right,
something that.
Or you don't want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Fit your silhouette. Quality is important.
Yeah.
All right. So up next is our relationship with money when it comes to risk and growth. Some people may say, I can't afford to fail. I can't afford to fail. So the question is really, what's one financial risk I've avoided out of fear and not fact? It was a fear that this will happen. And I'll preface this like this. So over the weekend, I drove to Palm Springs, and I used Google Maps to help me get there. This Google Maps took me on the back way. I'm driving down these up top of a mountain, these windy roads and this and that, and I was like, why did it take me this way? I will say this though, it still got me to the destination, but I realized while I was driving on the road, I have to focus on the road, because if I focus what was on the side of the road, my car probably went towards there.
Exactly.
So I remember just thinking, drive a little bit slower, but I will keep my mind focused on the road. And funny thing is, my daughter was in the car, had no fear. Oh, my dad's got it. She was like, oh my gosh, she was just, oh, Dad, this is cool. Let's stop. Look at this. And so I'm focusing on the road, And so I was thinking about that when it comes to people's relationship with money, and investing in, and maybe starting a business or, buying a house or whatever it is so many people fear what can happen. And yes, those things you fear could possibly happen. However, if you keep your mind focused on your goal, on the road, just the next step that you're going towards, then you could eventually get there, even with risk being there. If you focus too much on the risk, you're going to fail.
I mean, there's risk in everything. I mean, there's more risk in some things than others. But just keep in mind that the world works like the more risk, the bigger the reward, The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Like I remember when I gave the commencement speech at when I was graduating, and I remember putting this in my speech, and the whole I wasn't expecting the reaction, but all the graduates actually did got clapping. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't say much. I didn't even finish my speech, but one of the things that I said was that. I was like, that hit you like that. I thought the ending was going to be the bomb. But what I said is this: if you all want to be successful in life, and as you all enter the job market and stuff, you all have to understand that the bigger the solutions you can solve is the bigger the check's going to be. Right? The bigger the problems. The bigger the problems you can solve is the bigger the checks are.
Right.
Right. And that's how life has always been. Right. If you can find problems, because you're finding bigger problems, meaning that you're taking bigger risks. Right. And the bigger the problems you're able to solve for people, is the bigger the checks are. They're going to pay you for that.
Right.
Right. And that's how it's always been. That separates the rich, a lot of the wealthy people, from people who are, because a lot of times it's hard for risk averse or people who don't like risk, because they know, number one, it's kind of like this. A lot of people have been traumatized by taking risks. Right. Right. Or they've seen a lot of trauma in their life. So taking a risk for them is something that is not unknown to them, even though they're living in risk right now. Right. Because being in poverty is a risky thing. Yeah. Right. So why not just shift that mindset into taking the risk and go for it? There's some people say go for broke, right? But at the end of the day, that's what a lot of people are who are very successful.
Well, what about the idea the younger you are, the more risk you can take, versus the older you get, the less risk you can take? So if you're 25, you can risk.
It's kind of like this, and this is where things, as you go on in life, you're going to learn, right? So taking a risk doesn't mean, I'm just going to take risk all the time. It's like you have to understand taking a risk and learning from it, so you can build on it, right? You're going to understand certain things. You're going to pick up certain things, and that's where the power of 72 comes in, right? Right. So if you get older, you want to be able to, while you're taking these risks, to make sure that you have the discipline to put money aside so that you can retire, because you're going to have to replace that income. Or you're going to find yourself taking those risks at a late age, which is even more, which is like you're doubling up on your risk. Right. It's like now you're going all for broke, right? It's like you're putting everything, all your chips on the table. Because your age now comes into play, and you see that it's coming closer to retirement. And that power of 72 is now hitting me hard. Like, I forget to this point, or I'll be still trying to be working like I'm in my 20s.
So how does one balance both? Meaning going for what you want to go for. Right. But making sure there's enough security there. Right. To make sure when you fall, you land on that pillow.
And how you do that is this. It's by planning and proper planning, I think.
There you go.
And that's where I think
Habakkuk 2:2.
What does it say?
Where it talks about having a plan. Right. And whoever's the plan must write it down. Right. And make it plain. Exactly. And so those who can see it can run with it.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to have a plan in place. I mean, and that's the thing. It's kind of like a lot of times we felt we kind of feel it as we moved forward, and then we kind of picked up things as we fell. We learned things as we fall down. We keep moving forward. Now you'll find it's kind of, I had this discussion because I look at how my daughter is with some of her friends, right? And a lot of them, they don't ever go outside. It's like they're not outside kids at all, right? Right, it's way different, But at the same time too, it's like they take so much more risk than we did when it comes to technology. Like the things that we're scared of, they're not. I mean, none of them none of them went to school without a laptop. Right. And I went to school in the 90s. We didn't even have. We had notepads.
Yeah, computer lab.
Right, computer labs.
30 kids and 10 computers.
Right. So when it comes to that, I was saying one time, I remember when my daughter was like 5 years old, came downstairs and she had a phone, her laptop, and her iPad going at the same time. Right. So I'm like, what is she doing? So I looked at it. She was looking at somebody play a game. Yeah. Right. And then she was looking at somebody teaching her how to play the game. And then she was actually playing the game. At that age, right? So it's kind of like for me, it's like that's a whole different mindset. And then you're not even talking about there's a whole new generation of COVID kids, right? So because I'm sorry to say that, but they're the ones who actually they at babies they know how to can't control a cell phone, right? Because they grew up going to school
right
outside of school, right?
Yeah.
They grew up on the laptop. So one of the things is that you find that, and why I say this is because number one, with risk, when we look at risk, it's different levels there, right? We took risk a lot when we were kids because we had no inhibitions. We didn't see, we would do things that if we go back, you'll see that we did things that almost killed us.
Yeah, I remember jumping off my roof.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Now I can't jump off the porch.
But it's the same mindset we should have, right? When it comes to now things that we have shifted. We know those things are crazy. I wouldn't go jump off my roof now. Right. But at the same time, too, we've kind of lost it because now we try to play it safe, right?
Right.
But life is, if you want the rewards out of life, sometimes you have to take those risks.
This is a good combo, man. And the conversation about how money affects the psychology and our relationship with money, how that manages all the decisions we make in life. So career decisions, are we making our career decision based on security or passion?
Right.
And are we making partner marriage decisions based upon love or finance? What did they say? The old school folks used to say, no romance without finance.
No money, no honey.
No money, no honey. Lifestyle and identity. Am I making purchases based upon who I am or my values, or am I making out of insecurities?
Right.
And then are we making proper growth? Are we investing in ourselves? So we got less than 10 seconds left. So we had a good topic today. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Right.
Same time.
Yes.
Same place. Until then, we'll have another hot topic for you. Until then, peace. We out.
Peace.